Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this week's episode of Roundabout Sports presented by Interstate 70 Sports Media, where our passion is our profession. I'm the maestro, Jeremy Carp. It is episode 127, and it potentially is a stormy night in store for us. It is Wednesday, April 2nd, 2025. For those that are just tuning in, the picture you saw at the beginning of the show, I'll put it up one more time, is of my now late grandpa. I sadly lost him earlier today, but 93 years old, an amazing life. I'll always love him and miss him, and this show's for you. So we got a lot to talk about this evening, and we're hoping. So this is kind of what happened. This is supposed to be the return of Babs this week, Barbie, my co-host, and because of my lack of communication with everything going on, we didn't even know if we were going to do this show tonight. And so, yeah, I want to definitely, first off, say a few things. I want to welcome Harry Loomis and Scott Plaza, who are the newest writers for Interstate 70 Sports Media. I'm excited to have them as a part of our family. And, we're going to still have an amazing show. I'm really grateful for everybody that's tuned in. And so, first thing I want to talk about is the St. Louis Blues, because it is unbelievable that at one point, once again, we didn't think they would do anything. Well, now the St. Louis Blues have won 10 in a row. Last night, Cam Fowler scored with just a minute 34 left in overtime, and the Blues won their 10th straight 2-1 over the Red Wings. Jordan Kyrou scored near the end of the game, and Jordan Bennington made 20 saves for St. Louis. Now, St. Louis has Minnesota right now has a one more regulation and overtime win than the Blues. So it's getting really heated up in the wild card race right now. I'm going to put this in perspective for you as far as it goes. Right now, the St. Louis Blues have 92 points, whereas the Minnesota Wild have 87 points. And it's interesting because, give me 1 second. I gotta take care of this. I'm sorry, folks. Let me make sure we got the updated standings here. We do, yeah. So the Blues have 89 points, and the Minnesota Wild have 88 points. Now the records are the same, except the Blues have have one more overtime loss than the Wild. But as of the last 10 games, the Blues are 10-0, whereas the Wild are 4-4-2. And right now, it is mainly becoming a race just between the Flames, Wild, and the Blues. And it seems like the Wild, it seems like the Flames aren't even really going to get very far. So, but nevertheless, St. Louis also had matched a franchise record with 9 consecutive home wins. So it's definitely something to look forward to there. Now, I also do want to say that Jimmy Snuggard, I know I did not say that right, who is the 23rd overall pick of the 2022 NHL draft, made his NHL debut after signing with the Blues this past Friday. He signed a day after Minnesota, the Gophers, were eliminated from the NCAA men's hockey tournament. So, yeah. Like I said, we had a lot to talk about on this show, and I know there's still plenty we're going to talk about. And I wanted to talk about something that Harry Loomis for I-70 wrote about. And it was about Coach Jim Montgomery's impact during the Blues, on the Blues during this win streak. So when Doug Armstrong fired Drew Bannister for Jim Montgomery a few months ago, it was clear the Blues no longer had any patience for rebuild or things like that. They wanted to win now. And that's exactly what they have done. The Blues playoff chances on February 23rd were 7.5%. Now there are 92.7%. It's amazing what this team can do. Jim Montgomery, who was surprisingly fired from the Bruins, has shown just impeccable leadership with this team and has really rallied the Blues together. You have guys like Buchnevich, Robert Thomas, Jordan Kyrou, Braden Shem. I mean, these are very good line producers. And, of course, Jake Neighbors is there as well. And, Philip Broberg is a great piece for this team. So there's a lot of great tools for the Blues to have. And that, to me, leads to, in my opinion, a very successful team. Montgomery has been a big part of what's turned Dylan Holloway from an inconsistent prospect to a perfect prototype of what a modern player should be. And to me, one of the biggest examples is Colton Parayko. Yeah, he's still injured, but he's getting back on track to be on the ice. And on top of that, he's had his best season in years. I'll say that right now. So it's a welcome addition to see. Now, I will also say this. I want to talk about the give me 1 second, folks. Okay. Now, currently, and what makes this team successful is that the Blues have a roster full of players on the same page. And that's the biggest thing out of all of this, is that there is a cohesive unit. There is a team here that wants to win, is going to win, and for the past 10 games has done just that, and they've won. They got a tough matchup against the Pittsburgh Penguins, but nevertheless, they're ready to roll still. And this is another thing I really like, is that the team is peaking at the right time. Look, I love, I love seeing this team play. They outshot the Wings on the Blues outshot the Red Wings 11-3 in the first period. And the thing of it is, though, there was a big period where it seemed like the Blues were just getting outplayed in every facet of the game. And yet somehow, and in the third period, the Blues were extremely sloppy. The Red Wings just kept pushing. The Blues couldn't pass the puck. They were stuck when it came to their zones. And 5:13 into the third period, the Blues couldn't get the puck out of the zone, and Detroit scored. So JT Comfort was able to basically had an empty net at that point. Midway through the third, the Blues failed to capitalize on another power play, something that's plagued them. And Ryan Suter couldn't make a shot. Dylan Holloway couldn't make his shot. At some point, it really looked like the streak was going to end. And, it's just one of those things. Now, 27 seconds left, and all of a sudden, Kyrou took a long pass from Cam Fowler. He caught the puck on the heel of the stick and got it through and made it 1-1, and we sent it to overtime. And Cam Fowler, once again, overtime, the big reason. And they end up winning the game 2-1. So I love to see it. Now, the power play, I want to make this clear. The Blues did eventually score on a 6-on-5, but the Blues were not good on the power play against the Red Wings. And the Red Wings have the worst penalty kill in the league. They only kill off about 68%. So the fact that you can't capitalize like that, ugh. Yeah, it's unheard of. Now, one thing I do want to say, good job, Jordan freaking Bennington. If I had an applause soundbite here, I would. Because guess what? It may only have been 21 shots that Detroit had, but this thing, and look, Talbot for Detroit, but fantastic. Cam Talbot did an amazing job for Detroit last night. But Bennington saved 20 shots, 20 out of 21. And they had perfect chances too. It could have been a lot worse, especially because defense was not on their A game at all. So if I was Detroit, I'm definitely beating myself up if I'm Detroit after last night's game. And once again, I want to talk about the tenacity of this team. Even if the Blues had lost this game, they still would have been 5 points up in the playoff race. So you got a good cushion. You're like, okay, well, we lost the game. We're still going to accept things. But the Blues weren't satisfied. And they made sure that they'd make the Red Wings pay for not putting the game away. They kept plugging away. They kept pushing. They were not dominating the Red Wings, but they never were down and out. And that, to me, is the biggest thing about this team this season, is that they were never down and out. That's what I love the most. So, yeah, I'm very proud of this team. So yeah, the St. Louis Blues, good on them. And our dear friend Nick Hesley, longtime super fan of the St. Louis Ambush, saying stay blessed. Thank you, Nick, so much for the kind words. Folks, be sure to send in your comments, questions, whatever you have. And basically, I want to put it like this way. The Blues are a special team right now. But they're not special enough to where they'll just where they can dominate. Now, I have found out that unfortunately the return of Babs has to take place one more week from now. Once again, folks, That is my fault. And, you know, I guess with that being said, it gives me the chance to kind of talk about the St. Louis Cardinals. She was going to be on and talk about the St. Louis Cardinals alongside me. And next week, she's going to be back on. No ifs, no ands, or buts about it. But we got a little bit of St. Louis Cardinals talk, I have to say. You know what's interesting is that the Cardinals won 12-5 today against the Angels. But that's not the biggest thing that fans are talking about. The past few games have been terrible. On March 31st, 2 days ago, they had a crowd of 21,000 fans. 21,000 fans. It's the lowest non-COVID crowd in Busch Stadium 3 history. That is until today, when 20,000 fans showed up to the game. Now, it's interesting because the Cardinals have seemingly treated this year as a step back season in order to get finances in order. You know, they let Paul Goldschmidt go. Lance Lynn, Kyle Gibson, who left. Lynn ends up retiring. You know, they tried trading Nolan Arenado, and Arenado, nobody would budge. And meanwhile, just last season, they finished tied for second in the National League Central. And, you know, it's interesting because this team, I look at it, and let's put it this way. Wednesday, which is today's total attendance, is the second new record low this week. In both games, more than half of the available tickets went unsold. Now, a full capacity crowd at Busch Stadium 3 is about 46,000 fans. Last season, the Cardinals dipped below 30,000 in a single game for the first time in franchise history, excluding COVID-related games. Now, I want to make this clear. Attendance is not necessarily a reflection of how many fans show up to the ballpark. They always do this. It is by tickets sold. So I want to really keep that in people's minds. So be ready, folks, because it might not get better. Now, for some fans, there's a lot of reasons why attendance has dipped and why they don't go to the games. First off, who's paying $20 for a beer? Okay, maybe a little exaggeration, but not too much. Beer's expensive, food's expensive, parking's ungodly expensive, and on top of that, back-to-back years without the postseason is not something Cardinal fans like dealing with. I just am saying. So, you know, the Cardinals just concluded their 6-game homestand to open the season. Friday, they're going to Boston to take on the Red Sox. But I think a big reason for the lack of attendance is just fan interest and fan faith. It doesn't make them bad fans, but people want to be weary. They don't want to put all their cards on the table, no pun intended, all their money on the table. You know, so I understand that. So it is what it is at this point. And I look at it to where, you know, anger with the DeWitt and John Mozeliak has also been evident. If you tuned into opening day, whether you were at the game or you were watching it on TV or hell, even listening to it on the radio, the DeWitts and John Mozeliak were booed heavily at Busch Stadium. And they said they're investing in player development, and they saw one of the biggest payroll declines in the league for the season. Now, last year, the smallest crowd came August 29th against the Padres when 26,553 people showed up. Now, when you have now Eddie over here, Eddie Jameson tuning in as always, he says, I like their fight in them. Look, there are some instances of fight in this team. Some instances, not so much. I want to, whoops, excuse me. Give me 1 second. I'm happy for both Wilson Contreras and Mason Wynn, who, after starting the season a combined 0 for 39, together they tallied 3 hits today. Contreras got 2 RBIs, but the real star of today, without a shadow of a doubt, was Ivan Herrera. Because the Cardinal catcher, who now with Contreras moving to first base, is going to be the main catcher, he hit 3 home runs and walked once, but he got 6 RBIs. 6 of the 12 Cardinal runs came because of Herrera. Fantastic job by the young catcher. It is some pop that we really needed to see. He was the only Cardinal to hit a home run today, and he knocked through 3 of them. So good on him. Now, I also want to say, as far as attendance goes, that brings me to another sport. And Lord help me with this. So excuse me. Last week the UFL season kicked off. Now this Sunday, the Battlehawks take on the Brahmas at the Dome at America Center. But I look at this team, I look at the attendance of the Battlehawks, and this is where we're at right now, folks. I want to put this clear to you. Opening day at Space City Financial Stadium in Houston, which is home of the Houston Cougars football team. 7,124 people. Now, my problem with all of this is the fact that you have a team like the Battlehawks, should have made it to the championship game last season, but that's neither here or there. But they are the highest drawing team by a long shot. And you're going to have them start the season on a road game? I mean, let's not act like, and attendance around the league wasn't great either. I want to also put that out there, folks. So right now, Arlington's home game only had 10,000 fans. DC's home game only had 12,000 fans. And look at this, folks. The Memphis Showboats home opener literally had 4,373 people attending the game. Now, week 2, even though the game's going to be played in St. Louis, It's considered a road game for the Battlehawks. Why I don't know, but that's just the way it is. And once again, there is no reason they should not have had the opener of the XF or the UFL season anywhere else but the Dome at America Center. That's something I'm standing by. So, folks, if you are just tuning in, I want to kind of give the rundown with you on what's going on this week. This is Roundabout Sports presented by Interstate 70 Sports Media. Now, if you see the title of this episode, this was going to be the return of Babs. She has been out for a while, and it has definitely been, she's definitely been missed, but because of me and my lack of communication, a lot I got going on, she wasn't able to make it tonight. She will definitely be here next week for episode 128. But until then, it is me. So for one more week, it's just me, but that is okay. I'm grateful for all of you that are tuning in live. I'm grateful for everybody that tunes in on Spotify. It means on iHeartRadio. And it just means a lot to me. I know I'm stuttering, but it is what it is. So with all that said, whoops, give me 1 second, folks. Okay. All righty. I want to cover a couple more sports stories before we do wrap it up this evening here. First off, I have to say this. This is an interesting one. Sacramento State is filing an application with the NCAA this week to transition from the FCS to the FBS. Now, I'm definitely looking forward to seeing how that plays out. And the schools filed a waiver to transition as an independent in football. Now, they are positioning themselves to join an FBS conference in the future. They need a waiver because they're not transitioning with a conference invite. In the 2025 season, Sacramento State plans on playing in the Big Sky Conference, which is an FCS conference. Now, for those that are wondering some of the teams that are in there, first off, I get a kick out of the Big Sky Conference. You got Idaho State, Idaho, Montana, Montana State, Northern Arizona, Northern Colorado, Portland State, California State, and Eastern Washington University. So some former members include Boise State, Southern Utah, North Dakota, Nevada, and Gonzaga. But, so there's always an interesting piece. Also, folks, in the news of sports, the Diamondbacks and Ketel Marte reach a 6-year extension for $116 million. The deal runs through 2030 and includes a player option in 2031. Replaces his current 5-year, $70 million contract. I promise it's not replacing a $700 million contract. With the incentives in place, this could add up to almost $150 million worth of total contract. And Marte is a big piece for Arizona. He was third in the MVP voting last season, and he hit .292 and hit 36 home runs and 95 RBIs. So big congratulations to him. And a little bit of NFL news. You know, Trey Hendrickson, the defensive end that was on the Bengals, says he's disappointed and confused by Bengals executive Katie Blackburn's recent comments on his contract. She said, I think he should be happy at certain rates that maybe he doesn't think he'd be happy at. I don't even want to read the rest of the quote. I know that's going to be bad, and I know that would be taken the long way. And that also, with all that said, there is one thing I 1,000% want to talk about in the world of football. Okay? So, here we go. In 2025, the NFL has announced, well, okay. Hey, how do I incorporate this? How do I word this? Okay. The NFL record book's about to be rewritten. And Paul Brown, who's probably the most influential coach in modern football history, is going to be the biggest winner, as will the Cleveland Browns. And as a Cleveland Browns fan, I am absolutely hyped. So, for 75 years, those who played and coached in the AAFC have been mostly ignored. Lost in the explosion of interest since the merger of the AFL and the NFL. Well, included in the competition committee report to NFL owners, the statistics from the AAFC, which means the players, the coaches, and the teams, will officially be incorporated into the NFL's official records, just like the AFL records were incorporated. Which means the AAFC, all their championships, all their stats, all their numbers are coming to the NFL record books. And this was not a minor league, folks. 17 men who coached or played in the league are in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Players like Otto Graham, Y.A. Tittle, Marion Motley, and of course, coach like Paul Brown. Now, in 2019, the NFL celebrated their 100th anniversary and dove deep into the history. And this is the most significant change. So the Cleveland Browns now will be will now be credited with 8 NFL championships. Not too shabby. As the Browns won every single championship in the history of the AAFC. Also, Paul Brown went from being 21st in wins. He is now going to be up in 7th place. I will take that. And nobody's going to be criticizing that. Also, the San Francisco 49ers of 1948 amassed 3,663 rushing yards, which puts them first place all time over the 2019 Baltimore Ravens, who had 3,296 rushing yards. They also averaged 6.1 yards per carry, which is ahead of the Ravens, who averaged 5.8 yards per carry that year. So not too shabby, folks. Not too shabby whatsoever. Now, like I said, next week, no ifs, no ands, no buts about it, Babs is going to return. And I apologize for her not returning tonight. She was going to. And I hate making excuses. I think, I should be able to be better than that. For those that don't know, earlier today, my grandpa passed away. And this is the point where we're wrapping up the show this week. And for those that are tuning into the audio-visual episode of this show, there's a picture of my grandpa and I when I was 3 years old. I have so many more photos of him, but this one sticks out to me as probably my favorite. And he was a very special and important part of my life. And I am most definitely going to miss him for the rest of my life. So, with all that said, I didn't communicate properly with Babs. But next week she'll be on. I want to thank everybody who tuned in this week for Roundabout Sports. Understand that you can find Roundabout Sports on Spotify, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, Pocket Casts, and anywhere else you stream your podcasts. You can also follow Interstate 70 Sports Media on Facebook, X, and our YouTube channel. And Roundabout Sports is on Facebook as well. Be sure to check out some of our other shows on I-70 Sports Media, like Issues with Wrestling, the Blues Fan Forum podcast, the Other Guys Sports podcast, and much more. And we also by putting up the NAMI helpline. NAMI, for that, you 1-800-950-NAMI. That's 1-800-950-NAMI. The National Alliance on Mental Illness is the nation's largest grassroots mental health organization dedicated to building better lives for those who struggle with mental health issues. We also put up the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline, and for that you dial 988. The line is open 24/7, 365, 366 on leap years. Understand that you're never alone in this world. There is always somebody out there who loves you, who cares about you, who wants nothing but the best for you. We all go through struggles. We all go through trials and tribulations every day in our world. And they're valid. Your feelings are valid. What you go through is valid. But it doesn't have to be faced alone. You were just a phone call, a text message, an appointment away from what could be life-saving for you. And you could be the listening ears and watchful eyes for somebody else in need. I want to thank everybody who's tuned in. I look forward to next week when on episode 128 of Roundabout Sports, Babs will make her long-awaited date return. And until then, folks, I'm the Maestro Jeremy Karp, and remember, life is a book full of empty pages just waiting to be written in. Make your lives worth reading. Good night, everybody. We'll see you next week.